We're good to go.
We're getting indication that we're streaming live, Scott.
We're good to go.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the September 26, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting, which I will call to order now. This open meeting of the Northborough Board of Selectmen is being conducted remotely, consistent with the July 16, 2022 Act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the Northborough Board of Selectmen are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. This order allows the Northborough Board of Selectmen to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. So I am Mitch Cohen. I failed to introduce myself at the beginning. Let's go around the room, the virtual room, and make sure everybody's microphone works well. By my screen, Scott Rogers.
Present.
Julianne Hirsch.
Here.
Kristen Wickstead.
Here.
Jason Perot.
Here.
We also have with us Town Administrator John Kader.
Present.
Police Chief Bill Liver.
Present.
DPW Director Scott Charpentier.
Present.
And we have Terry Underwood from Northborough Cable hiding in the background. Thank you very much, everybody. Well, let's get going. First item on our agenda are some meeting minutes. Would anyone like to, actually, sorry, before we go in the meeting minutes, we always allow public participation, and that's my fault for not noticing that right away. Is there any public comment from anyone in the audience who has anything to say for an item that's not on our agenda? If so, I will recognize you. We have Susie Sislika. Hi, Susie.
Hello, Susie Sislika, 8 Emerson Road. I have not moved, so I haven't called in a while. I just wanted to call. I am calling about an agenda item. However, being a busy mom, I'm on bedtime duty tonight, so I'm calling in right when I know that I can. I saw that you're going to be discussing the Temporary Traffic Safety Committee, and during the COVID shutdown, many of you have heard me call in pretty much every meeting about it and about the importance. I really think with the master plan coming into play that it's important that we consider doing this. I was told that the squeaky wheel, gets heard, and I called in every time for the crosswalks by 135, and the feedback has been fantastic, even from people that are coming from other areas. But I mean, how did we come to it? Like, what sidewalks that we discussed that we need new sidewalks or to connect, or, I mean, even here in the Northgate neighborhood, we have sidewalks, but if you watch people walking by, which I do while doing the dishes all day long, they don't use the sidewalks, they go in the street. How do you prioritize who's maintaining the list? I just think it's something that's, as you all know, very near and dear to me. And I will let you know, because it's been 3 years of me calling in about this. My cousin, when I was 16, was 14, and he was killed by a driver in the middle of the afternoon, speeding down a road, and my aunt and uncle had lobbied and lobbied and lobbied for lower speed limit. I'm not just calling to spend money or make work or any of that. It's really something that's near and dear, especially as my kids want to go to the park or they want to go to Indian Meadow, and it's just tough. So I just wanted to call in about that. I have other topics, but I won't cover them tonight. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing you guys around town. Have a good night.
Very good. Thank you very much, Susie. Thanks for the comments. Okay, and Susie, there we go. Susie lowered her hand. If anyone else would like to speak during this opening part of the public comments, let us know. If not, we'll continue on. Going once, going twice, gone. Now it's time for meeting minutes.
Hearing no discussion, Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Sure.
I move to approve the meeting minutes of September 12th, 2022 as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Scott, seconded by Julianne. Any discussion? Okay, Scott Rogers. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason, you have your.
Yeah, just noting
Yeah.
that there was a very minor typographical thing that I communicated to Diane Wackel, so she's going to take care of that, but it's not substantive to the meeting minutes.
Good.
Just
Works for me. Okay, any other discussion? All right, motion made by Scott, seconded by Julianne. Okay, Scott, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jason?
aye.
Kristen?
Abstain.
Julianne?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor with one abstention. And we will move along to next item, which is the continued public hearing. So I will, well, we already have the public hearing open, but I'll reopen the public hearing to consider poll petition 305-79396 from Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid, and Verizon New England for a new poll location on Pine Haven Drive. So let's see, Scott, do you want to give us a little bit of an update, or John, whoever would like to, and then we'll see if anyone, members or audience want to add in.
We have our town engineer, Fred Litchfield,
Oh.
as an attendee who can
Hey,
speak
we
to
can
it.
do
I
that.
believe we also may have the representative from National Grid. I don't recognize the
Okay.
number, but
Okay, Fred, I'm going to bring you in now as a panelist. And if the representative from National Grid is the 774 number that we see here, press whatever the magic button is to raise your hand. I think was it *9, *6? I don't remember with how it works.
*6, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Fred.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Everyone's well, I hope.
Yes.
My apologies for missing the last two meetings, and I understand this has been continued on for a couple of times, so I'm hoping that we can wrap it up tonight. I did present a memo last week to the town administrator, which I hope you all have by now. So the status, as I understand it, is that I've met again last week with the representative from National Grid and the homeowner at 48 Pine Haven. We discussed a schematic sketch of the pole and the anchor. We were in agreement that the anchor and the guy wire would be above any parked car, and the homeowner was presented with an easement that she needs to sign in order for them to go forward. My understanding is that she is working with her attorney on finalizing the language. But as far as I can tell, there's nothing else left for the town to do on her behalf or to manage the situation. So what I'm recommending through my memo and to you tonight is to approve the poll petition and allow them to go forward and work out the details of that. The pole is going to be moved, as been stated previously in the petition, about 9 feet to the north. The anchor wire has been moved slightly further back from Pine Haven. It's approximately going to be 18 feet plus or minus from the back directly behind the pole, giving ample room for a car to park under there. After that, beyond that, I will let Miss Mendelson speak for herself as the homeowner. But again, from the town's position, all systems are go. They need to work out the language in the easement. She needs to sign the easement, and whatever they can do to make her happy with that, they should. So.
Great. So property owner, Miss Mendelson, if you would like to join us, you're certainly welcome to. Go ahead and there we go. Got your hand raised. I'm going to bring you in all the way. Michelle, if you could unmute, and I'll leave the video on or off at your discretion.
Hello.
Hi there. So I know you've been following this very closely, and you and I did speak over the weekend also. and seemed to be consistent with what we heard from Fred. But I think it's important for the board to hear from you as the active property owner in the area.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I agree with everything that Fred has said, and the memo that he wrote up dated September 23rd. I agree with everything in there. Between the last meeting and this meeting, National Grid did come up with a rudimentary sketch that showed height of the pole, angle, how far out the anchor would be, and I was able to calculate from that and taking some measurements just how much clearance there would be from my car. Some of you may recall last time there was a question at the meeting about how far up that kind of corner tree the guy wire would hit, and from my calculations it appears to be about the 15 to 16 feet that National Grid had said, so I was happy with that. It's enough for a car clearance. You know, I was fine with that. All of that detail is great. None of it appears in the current easement. So I am working with my attorney and got a contact today at National Grid to work into getting some of or any of that detail into the easement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any board members have any questions for Ms. Mendelson or otherwise? Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of 18 feet from the pole, do we have a measurement on how far that is into the property and the distance for the easement?
If you're asking me, the easement that I was given, the original easement I was given had absolutely no numerical measurements in it. I then pushed back and asked to please have a number in here. And so it says plus or minus 18 feet is the only measurement in it right now, which seems like a circle around the pole to me, which also doesn't seem quite accurate. So again, like I said, trying to get some in there. Perhaps Fred can talk a little bit more to the specifics of your question about the 18 feet.
Fred, do you have any other detail you could add?
I do. The 18 feet, we actually measured the folks from National Grid put a stake in the ground as to where they intend to install the anchor. So we physically measured from the proposed pole location to the proposed anchor location. That was 18 feet. The question arises as to exactly where the right-of-way line is. We did not survey the property based upon the GIS. The currently proposed new pole location is probably 2 or 3 feet in front of the right-of-way line, so that anchor will be approximately 14 to 16 feet onto her property. If you look at the pole and then direction directly to the anchor, the guy wire appears to be right at the very edge of the pavement for the parking space that Ms. Mendelson's trying to maintain. And so it appears as though there should be no conflict regardless of where that wire falls. It's very edge of that pavement, but I can't say for certain how far the anchor is onto her property. I did speak to National Grid this afternoon after I spoke with Ms. Mendelson, who pointed out that plus or minus is before the 18 feet in her easement rather than after. And I believe that was a typo, and they would be willing to correct that so that it's 18 feet and plus or minus is usually a foot or two, not 18. So it should be that. I'm hoping that would be the resolution that's required for her to sign the easement, and we can all move on from here.
Yeah. And is it still the understanding that the paved space is wholly in the public way or mostly in the public way?
Partially.
Partially. Okay. So then, I think I said it last time, homeowners that inherit structures or improvements of their property or in the public way adjoining the property just need to be clear on where their property lines are. Final question then, are there scenarios that we would be making roadway or further utility improvements that would put that parking space at risk?
I can't speak to that. I don't know of any utility expansion in that area that would. Clearly, there's no sidewalk at that location.
I'm sorry, Fred, one of the components of the Complete Streets program is selecting new sidewalk installations to connect gaps. There is an identified gap along Pine Haven from Lincoln to the Times Square West Main Street Business District. It's not specifically identified as a priority project, but it was discussed and brought up on a couple occasions. So right now we have no plans in the works to construct a sidewalk on Pine Haven, but to be aware that it is a sidewalk gap in our network.
All right, thank you on that. And thanks to the homeowner and National Grid for being flexible and coming to a resolution on this. Thanks.
Very good. Anybody have any other questions? Are there any members of the public other than Ms. Mendelson that would like to speak with this, given this is a public hearing? I am seeing none. So Michelle, I'm going to, unless you have anything else you want to add, I'm going to drop you back to an attendee and we'll continue with the voting portion. Thank
That's
you.
fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. It sounds like we're ready to move along. Next step would be to close the public hearing, which.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing on poll petition 305-79396.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Julianne, and I'll give the second to Jason. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Julianne,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Mitch Cohen, I also vote aye. Is there a motion on dispensation of the petition itself?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board vote to approve poll petition 305-79396 as submitted by Massachusetts Electric Company doing business as National Grid and Verizon New England, allowing utility pole number 10 to be relocated approximately 9 feet plus or minus to the north along Pine Haven Drive, and a new anchor to be installed 18 feet plus or minus directly behind the new pole, subject to approval of an easement from the current landowner at 48 Pine Haven Drive.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Julianne, seconded by Scott. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jason,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Julianne.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Thank you very, very much, everyone. I know this required a lot of work on part of town staff, fantastic advocacy on the part of the property owner, and of course, a lot of additional work by the applicant, National Grid. So I think this worked out very well. Fred, I think it's time I can drop you back down to an attendee if that's all right with you.
Nope, I'm out. Thank you very much, and appreciate the time that you gave me. Good night.
Thank you very much for the help. Okay, next up, we've got another hearing. I'll open the hearing for from Mormax Corporation, DBA BJ's Wholesale Club application for a change of manager to its all alcoholic package store license for premises located at 6102 Shops Way here in Northborough. John, you want to give us a...
Sure. It's an application for a change in manager. I believe you have Malika Harris is in your in the waiting room. She is the proposed manager. And if you want to speak with her, you can promote her up.
Okay, Malika, I'm bringing you in now.
As she's coming in, as you can see from your meeting packet, she has experience in the retail sale of alcohol. She's tip certified. And as always, Lieutenant Griffin, the police department, did a thorough background check, indicated he has no concerns at all with her becoming the holder of the manager's license.
Welcome, Malika. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you tonight? Hi, everyone.
Very good. Thank you for joining us. Is there anything that you would like to add as part of our consideration of this application?
No, just we're always excited to be serving the Northborough community and the community beyond, and we intend to do so continued safely. And I take with great serious nature, my role as the holder of the license potentially and the trainer of the team.
Fantastic. Are there any questions for members of the board?
No, just whether or not you have anything for me.
Yes. Are there any questions from members of the board for Malika? Anything additional to add from town staff or anyone else?
No, everything checks out.
Okay, fantastic. Ms. Harris, I'm going to go ahead and drop you back to attendee. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And we'll
Thank you,
take
everyone.
care of the vote now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this, since it is a hearing? Going once, going twice. Would someone like to make a motion to close the hearing?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the hearing for Mormex Corporation doing business as BJ's Wholesale Club for their change of manager.
Second.
Motion made by Julianne, seconded by Scott. All those in, any other discussion? All those in favor, let's see, Julianne,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. The hearing is closed. Is there a motion on dispensation of the application?
I move the board vote to approve the application to change the manager as submitted by Mormax Corporation DBA BJ's Wholesale Club for their all alcoholic package store license for premises located at 6102 Shops Way.
Second.
I'll give the second to Scott. Motions by Kristen. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Kristen. Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry. Was there discussion?
No.
No. Okay. Kristen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Julianne.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Congratulations, Ms. Harris. And I think we're all set with that item. Moving speedily along in our agenda, which is rare for us, but I'll take it. Next item is consideration of an open meeting law response for a complaint filed by a Patrick Higgins and Associates. John, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
So following your meeting on September 12th, we did receive, as you've indicated, an open meeting law complaint. It was filed by Patrick Higgins and Associates out of Alabama. So the complaint is dated September 15th. Copy of it is in your packet, so you can see. There are two agenda items that are focused on as the basis of the complaint. One is regarding the recommendation for appointments to the Board of Library Trustees, Scholarship Committee, and the Board of Registrars. And then the second component of the complaint is regarding the way the agenda read for the executive session for collective bargaining. So just in terms of open meeting law complaints, in terms of procedure, you have 14 days to take up a complaint. That clearly tonight is well within the 14 days. And the rules under the Attorney General's office is that once you receive the complaint, that the board has to take it up and look at what remedial action, if any, is required. The board should issue, basically make findings whether or not they agree there was an issue here that needs to be addressed, or whether or not there was no violation. The next thing is that I would be required then to send the board's response to the complainant with a copy to the Attorney General's office. So with regard to the complaint, I've consulted with town council. And so at this point, I believe there is a technical violation with regard to the posting of the agenda for the executive session. So the Attorney General's office advises that when you post for an executive session specific to a union collective bargaining, that you should list the union. So again, this isn't a huge issue, but just for the record, we took up discussions regarding the Northborough Municipal Employees Association and the dispatchers union were the two that we were in discussions with at that night. And by the way, any agreements in this case with the NEMA, the Northborough Municipal Employees Association, under the town administrator's webpage. On my page, there's a tab that has settled contracts, memorandums of agreement. So they're up if people want to see what was ultimately approved, and we'll continue to post those up as we conclude. We are in negotiations with all 5 of our unions, so we've settled now basically with 1. We did not get a settlement with dispatchers. So moving forward, the corrective action will be to add that detail into the posting. The second piece was with regard to the appointments. And so again, the Attorney General's office requires that the date, time, place of the meeting, and a listing of the topics that the chair reasonably thinks will be discussed at the meeting should be on the agenda. So in terms of the appointments, the board's interview subcommittee held its meeting on August 30th. Those minutes were included in your packet. They were posted along with the agenda. So all those names and the minutes and the rationale for the recommendations was included as part of that. And therefore, in town council's opinion, there is no open meeting law violation with regard to those appointments. So in terms of action tonight, what would be appropriate is for the board to find, or I would recommend that the board find that after reviewing of the open meeting law complaint, regarding the agendas for your September 12th meeting, that there was a technical violation regarding just the agenda for the executive session, but there was no other violation. And as far as remedial action, just in the future, we'll make sure that we put the union that we're actually talking about on the agenda. And that would be what I would recommend this evening to resolve the complaint. And once the board does that, then I would send a letter again to the complainant as well as the AG's office, so everybody's on the same page about what transpired. I can answer any questions you may have, or if the board, it's pretty straightforward.
Scott?
Sorry, a window popped up as I was trying to hit my mute. I guess, a technical question about this technical complaint. Does an Alabama organization have standing in Massachusetts open meeting laws?
Anybody can complain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And, yeah. It's public to anyone. Go ahead and Scott, Jason.
Yeah, I guess a couple things. One is, again, with respect to the executive session posting, are there circumstances where we would be talking about collective bargaining strategy without it necessarily being specific to any of the bargaining units? And if so,
Yes.
how should that be clarified in the agenda to make that distinction?
Just collective bargaining strategy, the general strategy. We aren't discussing any specific union.
Okay. So it's just a circumstance of identifying a specific union if we are going to be speaking about it.
Right.
Okay.
Again, this is, as far as open meeting law complaints go, this is as benign and as you can possibly get. I think that was tacked on to really what was perceived as the main event, which was all these appointments. However, that clearly has been addressed.
Yeah.
Jason, you can continue.
Yeah, if I could just make that point once again, the complainant seemingly doesn't understand the structure and process of this board to have a subcommittee that conducts the interviews with their own open meetings, with their own agendas, which do in fact list the candidates to be interviewed. So that's kind of done separately. And what we're acting on in our meeting is the recommendation of the interview subcommittee. So I think there's maybe a subtlety there that that bypasses the complainant's understanding.
And again, all of that is included, posted with the agenda at the time of that it goes up on the webpage. So it's easily accessible and part of the public record.
What I took from doing a little bit of research is this attorney seems to review a lot of, particularly Board of Selectmen, but sometimes other boards' agendas throughout the state of Massachusetts. And
everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah, well, whatever the case is, he has filed a number of these with a large number of towns over the past several years. That is absolutely his right. It is education to us to make sure we do it even better than we've been doing it before. And this is an opportunity where we can improve. my take from the other item that was not a violation for us was that he looked at the agenda and said, oh, boards of selectmen, they interview people during these things, and they must have interviewed people and didn't list the names without looking at the detail or watching our meeting. I haven't spoken with him, but that's my guess. And he would have been right if we had done the interviews and not listed the names, but the interviews, as John described, were properly done by the interview subcommittee, which were all posted with the names and everything like that. And all we were doing was deciding. Kristen, your hand is up.
One other point that I thought was worth mentioning was at that meeting, everyone who was interviewed was recommended. So the names were all listed at that meeting, at that Board of Selectmen meeting, because there wasn't anyone that we interviewed and didn't recommend, because wasn't that the meeting we just had the right amount of people for the one I did with Scott, right? So we did actually list everybody. There were other ones that other meetings we haven't always, and if we should do that at our BOS meeting as well as our interview committee meeting, like that's certainly a change we could make, but I'm not sure about that detail. But
that's
anyway,
necessary.
Yeah.
Appreciate that clarification. Anybody have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to find that after review of the open meeting law complaint regarding the agenda for our meeting of September 12th, 2022, there was a technical violation regarding the contents of the executive session agenda item, that there was no other violation, and that no remedial measures with respect to the actions taken at the meeting are required. And further, that the town administrator report this vote to the person who filed the complaint, Patrick Higgins.
Second.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Scott. Any other discussions?
Yes, I have a question about the wording of the motion. So Mr. Higgins, all he asked was that we follow open meeting law and didn't ask for any other action to be taken. And therefore, my question is, should the motion read that there was no other violation and appropriate remedial measures will be taken? Because we will learn from this and list the departments that we're discussing.
I think the question about remedial action in some cases includes doing, for example, conducting an agenda item over again. If it was not advertised properly, or
Right.
or doing something else as more substantive remedial action for the meeting that was complained about, as opposed to how we will be including a little bit of additional information on agendas going forward. Is that correct, John?
Right. That is correct. Yeah.
Great.
There is no real remedial actions that need to be taken. So just moving forward, we'll make that change to the posting, and there's no other violation. So the motion as stated is what should get approved.
Did that answer your question, Julianne?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, again, motion made by Jason, seconded by Scott. All those in favor, Jason?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Thank you very much. And so, John, you'll be speaking with...
I'll take care of the follow-up on behalf of the board. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next up, we have DPW Director Scott Charpentier to talk about fee schedules for snow removal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Charpentier, take it away.
Yep, thank you. So this is our annual discussion about snow removal on private ways. We provide that service, DPW does, for two private roads off of Maple Street. There's Maple Lane and Harris Ave. We've been doing that for a number of years. Every year we reevaluate the fee we charge to the neighborhoods for providing the service. It's snow removal as well as salt treatment. It's part of our same routine around town. We provide the same service to them as we do the other municipal roadways. Last year, the cost was $215. This year, we're proposing a 2.3% increase, $5. They're bringing it up to $220 per treatment per storm. The neighbors were notified on a memorandum dated September 7th, so a few days thereafter when they received it in the mail, of the proposed increase, as well as the meeting being conducted tonight.
Great. Thank you very much. So we charge per storm as opposed to per foot of snow or anything like that, just to make it simple. Is that accurate?
Well, it charging per depth wouldn't bear
hard to
well
manage.
financially. If we have an inch of ice, we're going to put 7 trips of salt down. If we have 6 inches of light fluffy snow, we may go twice.
Mm-hmm. Makes perfect sense. Appreciate it. Any questions from the board? If none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to set the fees for plowing and treatment of private ways less than 3,000 feet for the 2022-2023 winter season as follows. $220 per storm per private way for plowing, $220 per storm per private way for treatment.
Second.
Okay, motion's made by Scott, seconded by Kristen. Any other discussion? All those in favor. Kristen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board.
Sure, thank you. Next up on our agenda is the consideration of the creation of a temporary traffic and safety committee. This came from me, from the board, as well as from input that we received from a very large number of members of the public. And I know that the board has discussed this in the past before my time here. So it's been a little while. The issues that come up, there are a lot of issues regarding traffic and safety that people mention. We get a lot of emails. Certainly, we've talked a lot about trucks in certain areas of town. A caller earlier in the meeting mentioned pedestrian crossings that she was very involved with. I think a very successful couple of crosswalks that were put in, or the lighting at the crosswalks that were put in. People talk about, there are questions about sidewalks and things like that. And a large number of people have said, why don't we have a traffic and safety committee? And they'll mention this town that has one and that town that has one. And I've always thought it's in principle a good idea to have something like that, but there is no standard. There is no that we can look at, every adjacent town and say, oh, everybody does it exactly the same way. Some towns have them, some towns don't. And the towns that have them do them all sorts of different ways. So the idea behind this is let's move forward with something and let a group of citizens figure that out and come back to us with recommendations. So I'd like to hear from members of the board as to that idea. I'm proposing in the motion I distributed earlier is open-ended only in that, in 12 months or less, that temporary traffic and safety committee comes back to us with a set of recommendations as to who should serve on that committee, how many people, what the charge should be, and so forth. And as soon as they've given those recommendations, or as soon as 12 months have lapsed, that committee ceases to exist. Because it may also come to be that maybe once we hear back from that committee, whatever we hear back, we decide that we don't want to have a permanent traffic and safety committee. And that's a legitimate outcome. As would be forming something like that. So that's kind of the idea behind this. I would propose that we, if we do move forward with this tonight, that once it goes to the interview committee, they look for people that are of a diverse nature in terms of the geography and interests around town. It would not serve the town as a whole very well if it was all made up of people that live near warehouses, or all made up of people that are only concerned with pedestrian crossings in one part of town or anything like that. I want this to be successful, but their job will be to go ahead and look at the towns in the state and to come up with a set of recommendations that they feel would work well for the town of Northborough. With that, I'll open it up to any input, and I see a lot of people dialed in that may have comments. Go ahead and raise your hand, but we'll hear from the board first. Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. Your insert into the packet for this meeting characterizes this as essentially an ad hoc study committee, if I understand it,
Reasonable.
to survey what is going on in other towns, and based on that, come back with a recommendation. The motion, the draft language of the motion for this item seems to presuppose that the recommendation will be to create a committee and simply clarify the details of how it's composed and what its charge is.
And that's
Is
my
that
fault.
the circumstance,
That's my fault for crafting that motion poorly. Typically, as far as the public is concerned, how the sausage is made, John usually crafts the motions. They get sent to the chair, and the chair distributes them. Because this was a board-driven initiative, John didn't include a motion. That's not his fault. I didn't notice that until about 15 minutes before the meeting that it wasn't there. So I threw something together so there would be something. I think it is appropriate to, one way or another, have that motion be clear that the recommendation of that temporary committee may very well be to do nothing. And if they can't come up with something that they feel that works for the town of Northborough, I think that's adequate, and I'd listen to them. To answer your
Thank you.
question. Any other members of the board? Kristen?
So I did a very unofficial poll, but I used my Selectmen Facebook page months ago. I don't even remember when I did it. I think it was in the spring. And I just asked people to comment with traffic and safety concerns, and it just completely blew up. And there were a lot more comments than I expected. So what I did to try and make it a little more useful information and not so anecdotal, I created an Excel spreadsheet. And I ended up with 31 separate complaints from people all over town. And by separate, I mean the locations don't repeat. Now, there are 31, so they didn't all come in at the same time. It's possible that I missed a couple, and maybe a couple do overlap. But overall, that's a lot of locations that people are just concerned about their safety or their loved one's safety or the safety of the school bus that goes by or whatever. I mean, there was a lot of different things. Some of it was pedestrian, some of it was bicycles, some of it was automobiles. But anyway, it's a lot of different locations for a relatively small town. So that's my one piece of sort of research that I did to try and see how deep the concerns about traffic and safety go in town.
Yeah, one of the things that I'd be very interested in terms of what this temporary committee would recommend back to us, or what is the scope of a long-term committee. I don't remember those issues at 31 on a small Facebook page is quite a lot of feedback. I think it might be helpful to, again, if we form this committee, to forward that information to that, and as a starting point for them to think about some of the issues that they may want to recommend that we tackle.
Yeah, I can definitely share the spreadsheet with, and any of you can, I'm happy to share it with the board as well.
Great. Any other members of the board have questions? We do have at least one. All right, Julianne.
So thank you, Kristen, for accumulating data scientifically. I think we all know in our heart that traffic is a problem in town, and is becoming increasingly a problem. So I mean, personally, I would support this committee. My question is, how large of a committee do you think this should be? And acknowledging that our staff is stretched thin with other projects. Initially, would you see a staff person on this, or not? Would it just be the citizens and maybe a representative from our board? I think we need to kind of figure out the composition of the committee, or would
Sure.
that because we're going to have interviews, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's open. This is a temporary committee. There, as I said, there is no standard for how to do this, so we can do it the way that we feel is best. I would imagine nothing larger than 5 people. I don't think it needs to be very large because the scope is actually pretty narrow for this committee. The permanent committee, I don't know. I certainly think that there should be some staff involvement as far as bouncing ideas off of staff and say, you know, what will work here? Do we have people that do this sort of work? But I sort of imagine that most of the research is going to be done by committee members of, contacting, officials in other towns, whether it be elected or appointed officials, where there are these traffic and study committees, and finding out again what works, what doesn't work. But then, my hope is that we have some agreement with staff before it comes back to us. How those details worked out, I'm fine leaving to the members that we appoint. But again, my suggestion is around 5. It can certainly have a representative of this board. It doesn't have to. It's kind of my thinking. Did anyone else? Did it answer your question, Julianne?
Yes, but I would almost say 5 citizens, 5 residents, plus 1 Board of Selectmen member, plus maybe 1 planning board member, and then a staff person who doesn't, I don't think necessarily have to be a department head, but someone who, who has knowledge of the rules and regulations of roadway.
Yeah, I mean, that can work. I mean, my inclination is staff should play an important role in this process, not necessarily as an appointed voting member. And I don't think we should be in the job of deciding, what staff people should play what kind of a role. I think that's John's responsibilities for him to make that decision. But I think we could be 5 plus 1 member of the Board of Selectmen plus 1 member of the Planning Board, if that's what the board would like. I would be uncomfortable with anything larger than that. It starts to get pretty big. Scott, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to advocate a bit for the people who have called in about traffic concerns, pushing them off to have a committee to determine if we need a committee makes no progress on resolving their reported issues. So I think this is not a good use of resources. We should use resources. If we're going to work on traffic issues, we should use resources to work on the traffic issues. A committee to determine whether we're going to form a committee just kicks the can down the road. So unless someone comes forward with an actual charge for a committee and clear responsibilities of what they're going to do, I don't have anything to vote on tonight. And the ad hoc discussion we're having now about how this temporary committee might form, it doesn't give me enough to go on to make a decision tonight on this. I'd rather solve the problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd rather form a permanent committee tonight, but we don't have that option in front of us because no one has ever come forward and said, this is what we think you should do. So I think it is worth considering having.
What I'd like to do then is talk a little bit about what we have put in place, right? So we have a mechanism for reporting traffic and safety violations. If folks don't know what that is, we can transmit out through town news the proper way to report traffic and safety violations. We have an established process of how people to submit questions or recommendations on traffic and safety improvements. If people don't know that, we should publish that in town news and reiterate the best way to submit those elements. Now, the process that we have set up allows public safety and public works staff to review the request or review the violation and make the appropriate response back to town. The benefit of our process is those responses are made available to the entire town through the town website. So rather than forming additional committees, I'd like folks that see a violation, know how to report a violation, folks that make an observation and have a question, know how to submit that, folks that want to talk strategy and long-term planning, do those with the appropriate committees and departments. I think we have mechanisms to collect that public input properly We just have a education that we need to do out to residents on the best way to report those issues to the existing personnel that have the jurisdiction and authority to do something about them.
Thank you, Scott. Kristen, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I wanted to suggest that the Northborough Police Department are available to this ad hoc committee to answer questions, because I think it was Julianne who said, or maybe it was you, Mitch, that there are certain town staff who know the ins and outs of traffic and safety rules in town, and I'm pretty sure the police are the ones who know the most about the kinds of things that I was considering anyway. And just to Scott's point, we've been talking about traffic and safety since I started paying attention to Board of Selectmen meetings, and people are still super, super frustrated. So whatever we have in place obviously isn't working. And I think this is one step in the right direction to having people have a venue where they can voice complaints that are heard and recorded and hopefully addressed.
Thank you, Kristen. All right, I see a couple of hands up in the attendees portion, so I'm going to. I think it's worthwhile with this to hear from the public. Janine C., I'm going to allow you to talk now. You could identify yourself; would be great.
Hello, can you hear me?
We do. Thank
Okay,
you.
good. So,
Just for our meeting minutes, if you could identify yourself, please.
sorry, Janine Callahan, 6 Darrowbrook Lane. So I personally think that Traffic and Safety Committee would be worthwhile for our town. I feel, mentioning what Scott had said about the website that's up, I was taking a peek at that the other day, and the last time that was utilized by anybody in town was back in, I think, March of last year. So no one's really using it. I think it was kind of difficult to use. I've used it a few times myself. It's not user friendly, I don't think. It doesn't allow for a dialogue with the specific departments that you're trying to work with that has to do with your concern, whether it's sidewalk or pedestrian traffic or whatever. I think people like to have a voice and a dialogue going back and forth. And if there's a committee that is willing to listen and hear their concerns, I think that's well worth it. I think people sometimes feel nervous coming forward and complaining about something. And you don't want people to be frustrated in town by things that are most likely fixable. And if it's just a simple committee that is put together to help, I don't see the detriment to that. I am in full support of helping the entire town with concerns that they have when it comes to traffic and safety.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Chris DeCitis, I believe is how we pronounce your name. Apologize if I've butchered that. If you could identify yourself for our meeting minutes.
How you doing? Chris DeCitis, 15 Allen Street. Nobody ever gets it right on the first try, so don't worry about it.
Thank you.
But I think I would be in favor of a traffic and safety committee as well. I actually have some friends on the Sherburne Traffic and Safety Committee, and just kind of getting some ideas from, what they do there. And they're a very small town as well. They'll take accident data, complaint data and whatnot, and kind of see those hotspots of where in town, there's going to be issues, or there is existing issues that people are complaining about. And they'll bring that to, they'll talk it over with the police and the different departments throughout the town, that they can come up with an action plan, go after any funding that's out there to kind of help get the ball rolling on projects that could be done to improve the town in the transportation. I think with the upcoming downtown revitalization study, and as well as the complete streets stuff coming out, I think it's a good chance to kind of use that to kind of, focus on certain areas and make it a safer area to walk around, downtown and all the surrounding areas.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Jack Wickstead. Jack, welcome.
Hi, Jack Wickstead from 2 Sturtbrook Lane. Appreciate the board raising this. The board has spent a tremendous amount of time. I know because I hear about it. And I've been at a lot of these meetings where you guys spend a lot of time dealing with these kind of, discussions about, ongoing issues with Amazon and traffic. And I'm not sure this is really a Board of Selectmen issue. You guys deal with so many issues. It would be nice to have a traffic and safety committee to download that off of your plate. I mean, you have enough things to worry about rather than listen to me carp again about, the problems I have with Amazon. So, I think it could help the Board of Selectmen to have a traffic and safety committee to defer some of these issues to. I'm not sure that many of these issues that we have really raised to the level of needing to take up Board of Selectmen time. I think people join local government when they have an issue that's important to them. And I think for some of the people who live, over off 135, Chris on Elm Street, us over here in District 3, I think this is an opportunity for people to join a committee that they feel passionate about, and that may get them involved in local government. And I would say, as far as the issue goes of having a committee to start a committee, Scott's point's very well taken. I do think that having a, time where you've got some interested people looking at Sherborne or looking at Westboro, or looking at whatever town it is that, that seems to fit us and figure out what best practices might be, would also give the Board of Selectmen an opportunity to try and get rid of some of the committees that are no longer necessary or active. Rather than having one more committee, this may be an opportunity to streamline some of the committees in town and give the Board of Selectmen a same window of opportunity. If it's a 3-month process for this, ad hoc committee to come forward, maybe that's 3 months where the Board of Selectmen can say, hey, let's get rid of some of these committees that are no longer functional, that we don't really need anymore, and focus on the ones that we think we do. That's just, that's a way of, of keeping our, our house cleaned up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Next up, we have Joe and Jen Scalise. I assume it's one or the other, but whoever it is, if you could identify yourself, please.
Hi, this is Jennifer Scalise. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Jennifer.
Awesome. I'm over at 206 South Street, so it's 135. And I feel pretty strongly that we do need this committee. I'm not involved in any of the Amazon issues, but South Street has its own issues, as well as the Northgate community down here that I'm next to. And I've heard, to Kristen's point, where she took a lot of input from the entire town. There's a lot of different issues that go on. And I have certainly have been educated, to speak to Scott's point, about all of the different places that I can put that information in. And what I've found is, when putting that information in, I'm not getting a lot back. And I hear that from other residents in town as well, is that we're bringing up points and we get, yes, we will address this, but in all actuality, with 31 potential problems, and that's just from one place, that's not the entire town. I really think that this town needs a place where the people of this town can come forward and talk about this and look for the solutions. And if there are no solutions, at least there is work done behind what's happening. And it's a committee of people, so it's not just under one person's watch. I think having that ability to look at issues and to get a little bit more information about them makes a lot more sense than just to dump it all on one web page and hope that some of these things will get attention, because in all actuality, a lot of these things are not getting attention and they're really dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Next hand up, Rachel Armstrong. Rachel, I'm bringing you in. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, it's Rachel Armstrong, 10 Hemlock Drive. I wanted to reiterate what everyone else has said in support of a traffic and safety committee. I have used the current system. It's been a while, as Janine said, but it is sort of like a black box. It's a void, and it's not a dialogue, and it's not an open forum. So my question, and Scott Charpentier and Chief Liver have always been very responsive, but it's a one-to-one conversation. It's not for the public to see, the response. So I think a traffic safety committee would be a central sort of fielding house where all of us can see the concerns in town and then see how the town prioritizes those concerns. I think we have accident data that's concrete, but we don't really have a place to see near misses or concerns that are going on that need to be proactively addressed. So I think a public forum where that can be discussed and decided upon is well worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I don't see any other current hands up from the audience. Any members of the board or others in attendance have any other comments at this time?
Yeah.
Julian.
Can I take a turn?
Yep.
So
Scott, Jason, you'll be up next. I got you.
To Scott's point about solving the problem, I really appreciate that. And we'd all like to get all of this solved as quickly as possible. The current mechanisms that we have for people to have input, people have spoken, and it might be working at town hall, but it's not satisfying to the residents. One of the things that's missing for the board is when somebody writes a complaint on, at one of the websites, we have no idea how many other people have complained about that issue. Let's just say the corner of Main Street and South Street. We might see one or two complaints, but we don't know who called DPW, who called the police. This is kind of an area where we can get all of that data together, and evidence-based decisions are all, I think we can all acknowledge, are best. And, if this committee will do that and help with prioritizing this problem needs to be attacked first, this problem needs to be attacked second, I think that's an extreme benefit of having a committee like this. And that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Julian. Jason, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what kind of committee we're talking about now. Are we talking about a study committee to decide whether to form a traffic committee, or are we talking about a traffic committee itself?
I mean, my overall objection is not objection. I guess my goal is I think we should have a traffic and safety committee, a permanent one. I don't know exactly what that form is. I don't know what that charge is. And rather than me privately doing a little bit of research, I think we should have some of the town residents that are very vested in the outcome of this do some of that research and come back to us with a recommendation. Kristen.
So if that's your goal, your ultimate goal, but this is like a step towards that ultimate goal, could we say that there's a relatively short amount of time, like in this, if we do vote on an ad hoc committee tonight, could we say how many weeks? Or at least
Yeah, I put in,
how many weeks?
sure. I mean, I put in 12 months into the proposed motion, just like on the outside. I hope that it could be done faster. I thought about doing 3 months or 6 months, but I know sometimes we vote on creating this now. We've got to advertise, interview, appoint. Sometimes that can take a couple of months. I didn't want to eat into that and have that be like, gee, you have to get it done 6 months from tonight. And by the way, you're not even going to be able to have your first meeting for another 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
So I set that as the outside. I would certainly ask, if we go forward with this, that they move expeditiously to go ahead and get this process started, or again, come back to us and say, we don't think we should do this, or they may make a recommendation that we disagree with. But give us that tool to go ahead and move forward with that. I'll add a little bit to what I think it was Ms. Scalise mentioned about an open forum. That's one of the things that I agree with also. I think I have put in one, I wouldn't even call it a complaint. There was a plow that took down a stop sign around the corner from my house. I filled out the form. This is probably 3 years ago. I got an email back from Scott at the DPW within 15 minutes that said, we'll go take a look at it. And the next time I looked at it, it was fixed. So I don't have any big problems myself, but I think it's good to go ahead and collect that data. And maybe that data is being collected and we don't see it. I don't know. But let this group figure some of this stuff out. Jason, I'm sorry, before I hand it over to you, Scott, Jason, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? I don't remember if I saw your hand.
I guess I just have the concern that at this point, we don't have a clear description of the composition of this committee, the charge of the committee, as precisely as would satisfy me to be able to take action on it tonight.
Scott?
I just say, Mitch, your anecdote proved my point. Right? DPW resolve the issue, answer the question within.
But I don't. But for example, I don't know. I'll use this as an extreme example. I really doubt this is the case, but I don't know. Do plows knocked over 30 stop signs every time we have a storm? And that kind of data could be collected. Again, I'm just building on the example that I gave. A lot of times it works great. A lot of times we hear from the public again and again and again about the same issues. And I would like to give the public a greater tool to hopefully improve the situation to their satisfaction.
Yeah, so would I. So
my
I'd like
issue
to
worked
have
out
a
fine.
Clear definition and what actions a resident should take if they see a violation. That's something we can publish, and have a clear process. If you see it first, define what are violations or what might be merely observation.
And I don't want to
publish that information, and folks can get it, and it'll be
Yeah.
taken care of, and issues will be resolved. What's not effective is a committee to decide whether to form a committee. What's not effective is emails back and forth to board members. Instead, we need to have a clear and well-defined process of how folks to report problems and how those problems are dispensed. And we had attempted to set that up. People are refusing to use it. Maybe there's some problems with usability. But if we use the established processes and we use the established authorities that have the jurisdiction over those topics, I think we can get something done. Right now, what we see, unfortunately, as a board, we see about the same 6 people representing a particular area in the town report observations to us. Some of those are violations. We need to give them a clear way to report that. And that's been working really well with Dr. Wickstead's morning reports. I think chief might want to have a different way to have those be reported, but that's at least being addressed. I think we use the resources we have to get something accomplished rather than stretch overwhelmed resources to form a committee to determine if we need a committee. Either come up with a charge for a traffic and safety committee, somebody go survey other towns. That can take one person to survey other towns. You don't need a committee to survey. Come up with a charge, put it in front of us. But right now I have this amorphous committee to form a committee, and I've got a list of problems from concerned residents. I'd rather focus on those problems. I'd rather take our time here tonight picking one issue, and I bet in 30 seconds we could brainstorm who's the right staff member or who's the right committee to give that issue to. and dispense with it. I'd rather have those discussions here rather than not knowing what we're voting on tonight.
I think what we're potentially voting on tonight is simply to form a committee to make recommendations to us. I'd rather have that come from a group rather than an individual. I did consider doing the survey myself, but then it's just my own input, my own recommendations. I'd rather have a few people do that and do that in public. Any other, Julianne?
So when we formed the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, that's the model we use. We said it would be a temporary committee for a year and they would come to us with recommendations. One of their recommendations was a permanent committee. Look at all the time we're spending talking about it now, how much time we've spent on it month after month. And for whatever reason, it's things are not working optimally for a lot of people. So let this group that we formed tonight hash all of that out and come back to us. I agree with you, Scott. We'd like to get this done as quickly as possible. We can change, we can say that they have to come to us with recommendations in 3 months. If they need more time, they can come to us and say they need more time. But I think the important thing is that we do this in the right steps so that whatever we do is as optimally working as possible.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Either from Kristen.
Just one quick thing. If I was just looking at your motion, and maybe could we change in no more than 12 months time to a smaller number?
No more than 6 months time?
Yeah.
Also on the motion, I would add, and this is something we should discuss now, I would add that the committee be composed of 5 residents, a member of Board of Selectmen, a member of Planning Board, and then Mitch, you suggested that staff choose whomever they think is appropriate to attend the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly look to John to make the determination as to what staff members should participate and to what extent. I don't think we should be in the business of dictating that. Scott.
Final comment or final question, and it's a two-parter. I would like to know from town administration, from public safety and public works, their thoughts on this and what their recommendation would be to better investigate and resolve traffic issues in town.
Okay, John, do you want to take that?
So a lot of discussion tonight, and I know we've had a discussion regarding traffic and safety committees, traffic safety committees in the past. I guess my biggest concern, we can form as many committees as the board would like to study as many issues as the board would like. And that's not a snarky comment. That's just the reality. It's something that the board wants done, we can do it. My bigger concern, frankly, is just the resources that a committee like this is going to take up, given the very, very broad scope potential scope that I'm hearing. We did, the last time this came up, a survey of all the area communities, who has committees, what do they do? They all have 3 to 6 staff members voting for the record, staff members on those, because you need police, you need DPW engineering, you need planning, and in some instances, the fire department is also involved in those. It's very labor intensive, and I've commented to the board in the past and recently about the number of very large initiatives and projects that we have before us at the moment. A number of these committees, when you look at them, You know, like Westboro has a 12-member board with 6 staff on it, and they only look at bike and pedestrian only. That's it. That's the extent of what they do. And half of them have none, and then a number of them have just staff committees as we have functioned as we've gone along. I guess the issue for me is just resources. The departments that are taxed right now are my office, police, DPW, engineering, soon to be planning. You know, we have a master plan implementation committee that's also a downtown master plan. We've added the White Cliffs committee. We have a fire station building committee. We're about to start a town offices feasibility study committee. We also have all the initiatives that Scott Charpentier's brought forward. You know, between the green communities, the complete streets, the master plans for the sidewalks. There's a lot of things that we've got going here. My honest concern to you tonight is just that we really need to take a look at what are our priorities amongst all the things I listed, and where does traffic, adding a new committee that's going to take a minimum of 3 staff, where does that fit in, and what additional resources can be brought to bear to make this manageable? Because this is, tonight, we scrambled tonight. Scott Charpentier, the DBW director, is hosting the webinar tonight because we didn't have a host. We are scrambling to get hosts and clerks to do minutes and postings because everything is being done through Zoom at the moment. Again, not a bad thing, but it is more work. Everything is added to the workload, and I think at some point we need to have a discussion. We're there about staffing in general. You know, we don't have all these assistant positions that a number of these other communities have. And we have a lot of, I'd say at the moment, we have an extraordinary number of significant, large initiatives that's taking up the time of the very departments we're talking about adding another project to. So again, we can do whatever the board wants, we just, my concern is that I have staff in the departments that are going to get impacted are overloaded at the moment. And we need to have, as part of the conversation, how are we going to bring resources to bear? If this is the top priority of the board, and, you know, again, that's for you to decide, then we'll implement it, but we need to have some acknowledgement about the other priorities, how they all fit in, where they slot in, and what the staff can reasonably get done. This is not a small committee or a small endeavor. This is going to be a very significant investment in time of staff resources. There's no question about it. And that's okay if this is your priority, but we just need to make sure that we have the resources. That's my concern, is adding more to a staff that's already stretched very, very thin at the moment. That's my primary issue.
Thank you, John. I will say that, you know, we are deciding whether this is a priority for the board. You know, that's our vote, that's how we decide that. And I'm reading into what you're saying, John, that your concern about staffing levels are for a permanent committee, not necessarily for a temporary committee. And I would add that certainly, you know, what I would expect back from the temporary committee for recommendation would include the level of staff required. And then we should have that discussion as to whether we have that available to us.
Yeah, it's a minimum of 3 staff across the board. I'm telling you that right now. That's not even at question, not even at issue. Minimum of 3 staff, because you have to have police, you have to have engineering, DPW, you need planning at the table. And sometimes you may need the administrator's office for budgeting and finance purposes. With regard to if this is the priority of the board, again, we started a conversation a couple of meetings back about what the goals and priorities of the board were. I don't think we had an opportunity to finish that conversation. And, you know, where does this fit in? And whatever the priorities of the board are, that's what we're going to implement. We just want to make sure that we're clear in the context of other things. What do you want me to prioritize with the staff? Because we are running very thin on those staffing resources. We just are. Northborough has always been a very lean organization. You know, I know we point all the time to Westboro, and Westboro just did a comprehensive staffing study. For starters, they have 68 more FTEs than we do right out of the gate, and they're asking for more. 68 more full-time equivalents to only a couple thousand population larger than us. Their tax bill reflects that as well. So we need to balance all of these things of staffing, tax impact, priorities of the board. If we don't do it holistically and look at all of this together, we're going to get out of balance. And I need to make sure that what I'm demanding of my staff and what you're demanding of me is reasonable, and we have a reasonable chance of delivering what you actually want and being successful as an organization. And that's my concern right now, that bigger discussion about what are all the priorities that we should be focusing on, where does this fit in, and what are we doing to make sure that we have the resources and the staffing to be successful. We want to be successful. We want to give the board what they want. We want to give the public what they want, but we always have to balance all that with what's the tax impact ultimately going to be for all of this.
Thank you, John. Okay, any other questions? Okay, in which case I will entertain a motion if someone would like to make one.
Mr. Chairman, and I am going to add something to the motion. And here it is. I move the board create a temporary traffic and safety committee. The committee's charge shall be to return with recommendations to form a permanent traffic and safety committee, including membership and proposed charge, in no more than six months' time. This temporary traffic and safety committee shall be disbanded upon conclusion or 6 months' time unless extended by the board. The composition of the committee will be 5 residents, 1 member of the Board of Selectmen, 1 member of the Planning Board, and staff as the town administrator deems important.
My only suggestion to that motion is to remove the staff component from that. John, I'm sure, will assign staff to participate in that. I just want to make it clear that the members of the committee are the 7 as you're proposing, and whatever staff members John wants to participate would participate as well. I don't think we have to qualify that.
Okay,
That
then I
reasonable?
will move that as corrected and amended by the chairperson.
Okay, is there a second?
I would second it, but are you going to do more discussion?
Well, we need a second.
Okay,
Before,
second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Discussion, Kristen.
And then
Jason, I'll go right to you.
You never addressed Jason's issue where the wording really sounds like we're forming a committee that will not have an option to not form a committee, his first point.
We could insert the word
whether to or something like that.
Yeah, whether to return with recommendations to form something like we're talking about how the sausage is made.
Yeah. It's a detail, but I think it's a relevant detail.
That's reasonable. Jason.
I think it's important to get the phrasing right so we don't mislead people into understanding what we're voting on or potentially what gets approved here.
Okay, Julianne, since you made the motion, do you, I assume you have something written in front of you to read from? Could you massage it in such a way that includes consider or something along those lines?
Okay. I move the board create a temporary traffic and safety committee. The committee's charge shall be to return with recommendations to whether or not form a permanent traffic and safety committee, including membership and proposed charge in no more than 6 months' time. This temporary traffic and safety committee shall be disbanded upon conclusion or 6 months' time unless extended by the board. The composition of the temporary traffic safety committee will be 5 residents plus a member of the Board of Selectmen plus a member of the Planning Board.
Okay, I'll take that as an amended motion. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, motion or the amendment has been made and seconded. Sorry to screw up the meeting minutes, Di, but such it is. Any discussion, whether it be on the amendment or on the motion? Jason.
I just share the concern that the additional workload that's being placed upon staff members fails to take into account the priority of this effort compared to all the other initiatives that are going on in town at this time.
Can I speak to that? I think that that's a really important point, Jason. And hopefully that will be one of the topics that is discussed. How to best and most efficiently address this problem. So, I agree with you, and maybe, if we find that the residents want desperately to have an assistant planning person or assistant DPW person, then that's up to town meeting. But all of it has to be on the table. And I do appreciate this, the work on the stat. But that is something that can be brought up at the committee.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Scott?
Just a clarification on an assumption, then the members of the committee would be interviewed by the Board of Selectmen Interview Committee and then appointed by Board of Selectmen or Select Board.
Accurate. Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? All right. So we have, unfortunately, an amendment to vote upon first, and then we've got to unwrap that and vote on the amended motion. So on the amendment, which was the second thing that Julianne read, which I think includes the concerns that have been expressed. All those in favor, how do you vote, Julianne?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Jason?
Abstain.
Scott?
I vote aye on the amendment.
Okay. Very good. I also vote aye. The amendment passes unanimously with one abstention. So now we have the amended motion to vote upon, which has been, we don't need another motion on that. So all those in favor, Kristen?
Sorry, I was just taking notes and I totally
Sure.
missed. What are we voting on now?
We are voting now on the amended motion. So we've approved the amendment to the original motion. So now we are voting on the second thing that Julianne read to actually have it enacted.
Okay. Aye.
Okay, Julianne?
Aye.
Jason?
No.
Scott?
No.
I vote aye. Vote passes 3-2. Such as it is. Thank you very much, everybody. So we'll get started on advertising for that and set up the interview committee meetings for that. Next, we have reports. Let's see, Kristen.
Okay. My report is short. I'm sure everyone's happy about that. Thank you to all the volunteers who made AppleFest such a wonderful community building event this year. And thank you to the weather for cooperating. Cheers to the Northborough Historical Society for their annual bake sale. Love that so much. And for letting people use their bathrooms. I had a couple of people talk to me about the bathroom situation during AppleFest, and it occurred to me that the Historical Society really comes through. It may not seem like a big deal, but it really is. So thank you to them so much. The Solar Jazz Fest was very fun, and it was really interesting to see all the electric cars and the hybrids lined up on the lawn of the church, and the music was fantastic and the food was fantastic. Great job there. So in keeping with the festival's environmental theme, the Jazz Fest's theme, a quote from Rachel Carson: "Those who dwell among the beauties and mysteries of the earth are never alone or weary of life." That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. Jason, any reports?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank all the organizations involved with AppleFest. Another successful year and excellent weather, fortunately, throughout the weekend. So that was certainly very favorable. AppleFest committee, Boroughs Cares for Troops, Rotary are three in particular that I'll cite for their frequent efforts over the years to assist with the activities. I want to thank former select person Leslie Rattan for providing the board with the banner that she had arranged to create some years back so that we can walk in a parade with something that indicates who we are, if anyone's wondering. And then finally, somewhat more somber note, Just condolences to the Niemi family who suffered a loss, unfortunately. Very, very sad situation. We certainly give our condolences to the family. And then finally, remiss in not noting this at our prior meeting, but September 4th, 2014, this past year, it was the 8th anniversary of the loss of Brian Arsenault in Afghanistan. I just wanted to make note of that for the board and for the public. So thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Jason. Scott, your report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, also my condolences to the Niemi family on their loss. And also congratulations to organizers of and businesses that supported and residents that attended Apple Fest. That was great to see everybody enjoy the weekend of events that we had. From the Conservation Commission, they continue to review a substantial number of applications and issues. I'd like to publicly recognize our new conservation agent, Vinny Vitale, and the members of the commission for the exceptional way they conduct their hearings and the work they're doing protecting the wetlands. From the Greater Boroughs Partnership for Health and the Board of Health, we may see a regional website for the dashboard reporting that's done out of the Boroughs Partnership. You should have seen on Town News the booster clinics for COVID-19, as well as the flu clinics that are planned. I would ask that people that schedule an appointment, please show up so that the doses that are extracted for you do not go to waste. Unfortunately, we saw waste in the last clinic, and we just need people, if you make an appointment, please show up for it. We can't use it for somebody else once it comes out of the freezer. And look for other wellness events under the community calendar. From the Groundwater Advisory Committee, I think we'll be seeing Aspen Aerogels on November 7th. They've made it through some recommended conditions for the special permit from the advisory committee. The planning board has approved their special permit, and so I think they're to us on the final round of what they need for their chemical storage. Then finally, I attended a webinar on the planned improvements to Route 20 in Shrewsbury, just past Northborough Crossing. The plans include improved traffic lighting, traffic lights and traffic signaling, I should say that, bike and pedestrian ways along the north side of that route, and then roundabouts to better make the intersections at Walnut and Vanetti, the YMCA intersection, and the South Street, Green Street intersections better. So that will, we'll see discussions about over the years. Construction wouldn't start until 2026 or something like that, but we should see safety improvements on those intersections of Route 20. There's quite substantial accidents happening as people are trying to turn left, either leaving Route 20 onto those intersections or from the intersections onto Route 20. So Shrewsbury and Mass DOT are doing some good work there. That ends my report.
Thank you, Scott. Julianne, do you have a report?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first off, I'm on the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and I'd like to make everyone aware of the fact that there is a survey online that I encourage everyone to please take and complete. The deadline is November 15th, and this is all about downtown revitalization. The more people fill it out, the more information we get, the better decisions we'll make. So please, if you can, fill out that survey. White Cliffs Committee is moving along. There will be a request for proposal or RFP out very soon to hopefully find a partner to assist us with the preservation of the building. And I just want to, Brett Pelletier came to our last meeting, and I just want to remind people that the five points that we really are looking for in this RFP are: number one, preservation and restoration of the building, that the entire property and landscaping is considered, an agreement whereby the residents of the town will have some access or use of the building, Number 4, to help relieve our financial burden, the town's financial burden on the town, and that the use and the plan are consistent with the master plan. So these are, of course, ideal criteria, and it depends on cost and everything else. But this is, you know, the goals that we're really working towards. And then I hope everyone is watching the mural being painted downtown. Many thanks to the donor who generously gave the money for that. But huge thanks to the Northborough Cultural Council, who are always coming up with great ideas. And they are just passionate about public art and bringing art and culture to us. But specifically, I have to mention Craig and Suzanne Cox, because Craig prepared the wall, he put up boards, he put up the paint so that the muralist could come in and do her work. And it's so fun to see it getting done quickly, and also to watch her work. And I'd like to also have a shout out to Meg Kilcoyne, who has secured $50,000 for the town to go towards a culvert repair. And we're always grateful for our state legislators to look out for Northborough. And many thanks, and other comments have been made that I won't repeat about Applefest. But I do have one question, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time. I noticed that there was a press release about the position of ZBA alternate, and since Kristen and I are on the interview subcommittee, I was wondering if people who had already applied and been interviewed, can they just be contacted to see if they're still interested without going through the whole interview process again? One candidate in particular did it twice already. So when do you want to talk about that? Is this appropriate, or?
I don't know if the board feels otherwise. My personal opinion is delegate that decision to the interview committee to decide whether that's appropriate. Okay. But if anyone feels differently, now's the time to voice that.
We can do that.
Yeah, I would just make sure that you would recognize that you'd confirm with that person that they want to have basically their prior interview count, and include some mention of that in your meeting minutes.
Will do. Okay. Thank you.
Is everyone okay with that? I don't see anybody saying no. So
yeah, that's fine.
Good. And that concludes your report, Julianne.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will mention what everyone else has said, that Applefest was fantastic. The weather, all of the events I went to, I couldn't go to absolutely everything, but I went to a lot of them. I ate a lot of pancakes. I ate a lot of pie, walked in all sorts of places. I got to dunk John Kader in the dunk tank. John, thank you very much for being such a good sport. I know the fire chief and police chief also participated in that. But I only threw 3 balls, and somehow I'm not a good pitcher, but somehow the third one hit the target. And that was I think a lot of fun.
I think Mitch was practicing at home prior weekend is what I think.
If you saw the first ball that went straight into the dirt.
I wasn't worried after the first one.
Yeah, I surprised myself by the end. I think your wife had just as much fun as anybody
my
else.
wife had more fun than anybody. I was trying to keep it on the down low. She sent the videos and the pictures to every member of both of our families. So I've been hearing about it ever since. So they did appreciate the fact that I did wear a full suit and tie in the dunk, the dunk booth. So I had that going for me.
Great. Thank you, John. I also want to make mention again of the mural that's being painted adjacent to the town common. I was walking around town on Friday and bumped into the artist, Sophie Tuttle, while she was out observing. I didn't even realize she was the artist at first, because she was looking from the common towards the mural. And I was just saying, well, you know, that it was great. And then I saw her walk over and pick up a paintbrush and realized who it was. So I get to talk to her a little bit more. And it's just a delight having that done. So thank you so much to the Cultural Council and the person who funded the project and everything else. A brief mention of a traffic and safety issue that Folks who live in the Bartlett Street area, of course, are aware of truck issues and questions. Amazon has committed to us that they would have a flagger out at their exit 24/7 starting yesterday. I will leave it to others to investigate whether that is happening and whether it is successful, but they have at least committed to doing that to us. I also want to express condolences to the Amy family. I did attend the calling hours yesterday, and I expressed on behalf of the entire board condolences to the family. I know I was the only one that was available to make it, and I'm sure others would have if they could have. Obviously, a very sad situation. We continue to get complaints about SA Farm, and John, I think, is doing all the right things of trying to get all the right people involved to get DEP to more formally investigate and hopefully figure out what's going on. I've now gone up there twice to, and can confirm the odors that people report in the places and strength that they report them. It's not pretty. They're allowed to do some things, not allowed to do others. What's happening on site, we don't know, but hopefully DEP can find out. And lastly, I want to wish all Jewish residents of the town of Northborough a happy Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. The year now is 5,783. And if anyone would like to celebrate, just cut up a few slices of apple, dip them in honey for a sweet New Year. Thank you very much. John, did you have any reports?
Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there is a cemetery deed if someone would like to make a motion on that.
I move the board vote to execute cemetery deed 1156.
Second.
Motion made by Kristen, seconded by Scott. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Julianne?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Vote is unanimous in favor. Did anyone have any other business this evening? Kristen?
Sorry, I probably should have mentioned this in my report, or maybe not. I don't know. Wasn't there, Julianne mentioned RFPs, and that made me think of the old fire station and the RFP for that. What's going on with that?
Sure. Through the chair, if I may. Just
Sure.
So briefly, we did go through that whole process, and I have spoken. We have one bidder. I have spoken to that bidder multiple times. The issue was at the 11th hour, it was determined that we have a pump station on that project, and the owner of an adjacent parcel came forward and said they didn't think that the property line was correct. And so we had to have multiple surveys done. But long and short of it is that the property line is in dispute from a road widening that happened in 1910. So we're working through that. That's what's holding it up.
Wow.
So, and I did convey that to the proposer. So we're trying to get that resolved so that we can bring the award or the recommendation for the award to the Board of Selectmen. So everybody's anxious. Trust me, all the work is done on our part, and
Okay.
we're very anxious to move that project along. This is just the hiccup that's holding it up.
So you said the hiccup is a question about road widening in 1910?
In 1910, the survey pin was moved incorrectly. And so therefore our pump station, there's a portion of our pump station that is on somebody else's property. And it's related to that whole parcel. So it needs to get cleaned up so that we can surplus and sell the property under the RFP that we did. But we've got to give them a clean title and a clear boundary. So that's the holdup.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It's, sometimes these things, these are things that hold up closings all the time. That's why you have to go through and accept the deed, and we do a deed and a title search and all of that. So unfortunately, that's just something that we're trying to get squared away.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Appreciate you asking about that, Kristen. Thank you, John. All right. Any other business to come before the board? If not, I'll open up for any further public comment from the audience before we move along. I don't see any hands up. Going once, going twice. gone. John, I understand we have a need for an executive session this evening.
Yes.
Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chair, I move the board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Subsection 6, real property acquisition of 10 Monroe Street, due to the chair's determination that a discussion regarding this matter in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the position of the board.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Jason, seconded by Julianne. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Kristen,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
Julianne.
Aye.
I also vote aye, vote unanimous in favor. It is time